In the interest of transparency, I want to announce that the current delay is because they ran out of Xerox paper. True story. We're getting ready our response on Title VII on derivatives, but they ran out of paper. So they're getting more. The paper is on the way and will be here very soon. So much for the paperless society. Next time, Mr. Chairman, we're going to tweet you our responses.
I wouldn't touch that for a million years, I'll tell you.
Mr. Chairman, while we have a moment, no GSE.
Gentleman, Alabama is recognized.
You know, because of the scope and the size of this bill, and I think it's now over 2,000 pages, and we've had probably 20, 25 amendments just tonight. I think it's critical, and I know you've assured us that we'll have 72 hours from the time it's posted on the internet. I would just like some confirmation of that. And I'm not talking about when we pass it, when it's actually posted on the internet.
Well, let me say, my Republican colleagues have specialized in insisting that I do what I had already promised to do, which I do.
Good.
I said I would ask for the letter. I didn't say I'd write it for you.
It's in the mail, I guess, the letter.
We said earlier that we would have a conference. I expected it to be televised, and it has been. I was not in charge of C-SPAN.
And
I'm sorry, may I? Everything we've said we live up to. As to having 72 hours, this bill will be on the floor on Tuesday, which is well over 100 hours from now.
108 hours.
Fine. We could not. We have all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I expect that we will be able to put it on the internet sometime tomorrow. As the gentleman knows, we're not planning to do this bill till Tuesday. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday will have expired.
Sure.
So the answer is we will clearly have well over 72 hours.
Right.
If we wanted to, which we don't, we couldn't bring this bill up in less than 72 hours, in less than 96 hours from now, because we're talking about next Tuesday. So, and I now move the House response to the latest Senate offer on the non-716 parts of Title VII on derivatives. And we have it now Xerox, and it's now before us. We would insist on the foreign exchange being covered. We would insist on, as a swap, we insist on the futures hedging. We insist on the Watt-Meeks amendment, and I would say of particular importance, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee and the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee worked particularly hard on an arrangement involving jurisdiction regarding FERC. And obviously the question of oil become even more important with the leak, substantial leak in the Gulf. But oil prices and oil speculation have been matters of great concern. So this particular agreement on FERC was of great importance. I know I speak for the chairman of the Agriculture Committee on that. We would amend the second read amendment by striking paragraph H. We would amend the main Senate offer by, on page 18, line 25, strike, which may include requiring the obtaining of adequate margin through the end of the paragraph. And we have an additional technical amendment to add box office movie futures to the ban on movie futures. So that that's to the base text. Other than that, we agree with everything that the Senate had agreed to. They agreed to summarize. So that's our most recent offer. Does the gentleman from Minnesota want to address and I think, as I said, I've spoken to the gentleman from Minnesota, particularly with regard, I mean, we have the Watt-Meeks amendment, others are important, but the FERC amendment is of great importance to us and to members of the House. The question now is on the offer. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The offer is tendered. Senator, I believe if you have a counter offer, we can probably accept what you sent us back.
Where'd Julie go? There you go. Wait, taking this one?
We're posting all offers and counter offers. We can start posting titles as they get concluded by real estate council. Because, it's going to take them time to reflect.
Can we do it by Saturday? We can do it all day tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to take, just physically doing this is going to take some time. We start it incrementally and you know.
If we've got it finished, we started on Saturday morning, well, we go, say we got it noon on Tuesday, so they can do it by noon on Saturday. To Sunday, we'll meet the 72 hours.
It's a lot of work.
We keep saying that, Tom, and I understand that, but it's
Before we even try the incremental approach, we got to be doing, so that's more than ordinarily.
I have a further response to the gentleman from Alabama, because I've checked on this. What we plan to do, Ledge Council is now being burdened with a lot of this work, although they've done some of it earlier. We have worked with them. As they prepare titles, they will be starting first thing in the morning. We will post titles on the internet as each title is prepared. So, you know, depending on the speed of Ledge Council, we may fall 2 or 3 hours short of 72 hours by the time we finish posting on Saturday. We have been posting all the offers and counter offers. A lot of this has been on the internet, but we will begin posting titles tomorrow. So there will be a range probably of from maybe 68 to 85 hours of posting.
Well, I think we can certainly live with 68.
I thank the gentleman.
Mr. Chairman, we're about to respond to your offers. This is on Title VII. Let me say to my colleagues over here, and you should have this in front of you, at least it's laying it out in rather brief detail here, but there were a number of proposals. First, we're willing to accept 3 out of the 4 in the initial one. House number 106, 107, the retail foreign exchange contracts. House offer number 94, the futures hedging, the Watt-Meeks amendment, which we've discussed. We accept all 3 of those. On the House number 31 on FERC, we respectfully reject that amendment and would prefer to stick with the Bingaman language. On the amendment the read number 2 by striking paragraph H, we respectfully reject that. And the amendment, this is the main Senate offer, I think is that page 18, line 25. The language that strikes, which may include requiring the retaining of adequate margins through the end of the paragraph. We reject that respectfully, and we accept the additional technical amendments of the USC 13-1 to add box office movie futures to the ban on movie futures. So we would accept 4, and we reject 3 of the House proposal. I ask my colleagues if they have any comments on these at all. I suspect, I don't know, my colleague from Arkansas may have one. It's I suspect the first block I mentioned, you may disagree with me on that one. And if you want to vote on that, we'll have a vote on that. You want a voice even?
I'm sorry, I was talking. What do they do on these? What do they do on these? What did they do? Okay, that's my fault. I understand. Senator, we had a little distraction. I caused it. On the amendment to page 18, line 25 of the main Senate offer, what was your response?
We want to we respectfully reject that. I think your proposal was to strike
Yeah, which may include, and you want to,
We'd like to retain the language.
right. We had tried to respectfully include it, but you're respectively disincluding it.
Yeah.
We respect that.
We respect that. I just wanted to get back to respecting. We didn't do enough of that.
Nobody
Respect.
sing now, please.
We all set down here? We need more time.
Let me recognize. We have a minute.
How we doing on the other stuff?
Try to keep it calm down.
Let me agree to everything but those two and say we're going to ask for a further conversation. Talk to them over there from financial.
Yes, on that one. No.
Which is that's the most important one?
Work's more important.
All right.
Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, how crazy are they gonna go?
I'm fine with everything but this one and this one.
I know.
I mean, and you got 5 of them for crying out loud. Give me one. I'd probably cave and
Oh, you hadn't caved.
I caved and gave.
All right.
You want me to make a speech about it?
Yeah.
Watch this to get it out of here. Everybody's voting it.
So that would be, all those in favor of the proposals I've suggested would say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We send to the House the offer on Title VII.
All right, Mr. Chairman, let me respond. I'm going to call on my colleague, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee. That leaves 3 items, I think, in dispute. House 31, Read 2, and page 18 of line 25.
Correct.
And we have my colleague on the Agriculture Committee, which we share some very strong feelings. The FERC thing was very important to us. I think we feel less strongly about Read number 2, and we would be prepared to accept that. But the other 2, I'm going to recognize my colleague from Minnesota for a further conversation on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, first of all, on this end user stuff, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about that here today. But what you're doing is putting back in these margin requirements, which is going to
Which one are we talking about now?
about
Page 18, line 25, main Senate
Yeah.
amendment.
you know, authorizing them to put margin requirements. I mean, we've been trying to make sure that the people that were legitimate end users weren't going to get caught up in that sort of thing. So I think that is going to cause some consternation. In terms of the FERC, you know, we spent a lot of time over here going back and forth with the Energy and Commerce Committee on this. And basically what's going on here is FERC is trying to get into the futures business. So what in the hell, excuse me, what sense does what sense does it make to put FERC in a business that the CFTC is already doing and knows how to do? You know, I mean, that's what your language is going to do. They're going to set up a whole nother bureaucracy over there to regulate futures. You know, and this doesn't make any sense. So we had a hard time coming to agreement with our people on Energy and Commerce. I don't know if anything like that took place on your side, but this is a very bad idea what you have in your bill, and we think we have worked out the right solution.
Mr. Chairman.
May,
Mr. Chairman.
may I ask a question?
Yeah. Who's, I'm sorry? Yes, Senator Corker.
The way I understood it is FERC not just retaining what they already are. Doesn't this have to do with transmission rights?
That's what they want to lead you to believe, but what this is really about is that they want to actually get into the futures business in terms of electric transmission.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Now they'll tell you something different, but we went back and forth, and I don't know how many different meetings we had with Energy and Commerce over here. This is not just about protecting their existing jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman,
Giving them extra jurisdiction.
I think with your acquiescence, if I read our body language right, at this point, let's just have House and Senate members be able to, we're towards the end, I think we could dispense with any formality. and it might promote this if we could have a House-Senate general conversation. Obviously, we still have to vote separately, but I'm going to be willing to recognize you. Recognize.
Yeah, I would tell you, and again, I had great respect for Colin Peterson and the work he does. Obviously, Jeff Bingaman, Senator Bingaman, who chairs the Energy Committee, was the one who raised this issue with me. They have jurisdiction over FERC and has talked to me. I know he's talked to Blanche and others about this. So, and I know Blanche disagrees with this, agrees with you, Colin, but I know he's raised the issue. So I was merely trying to protect the interest of a senator who chairs a committee on energy that has jurisdiction over FERC.
I wonder if Senator Lincoln had, if Senator Lincoln was, Senator, did you have a comment on this?
I did. I'd like to associate myself with my friend and colleague, the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, particularly on the fourth item there and the first on the FERC, and I think also on the Reed Amendment 2, which takes out of the
I'm with
CFTC's
Bingaman.
jurisdiction the futures, the single stock futures.
You're with Blanche?
Yeah, Blanche was occupied otherwise when we negotiated with Senator Bingaman on this particular issue. And frankly, I am on the side with Senator Lincoln and Congressman Peterson on the issue. But we negotiated an agreement with Senator Bingaman. I feel somewhat obligated to that, but my loyalty is
Mr.
with
Chairman, I want to,
CFTC
Senator,
on that.
Senator Dodd,
Yes, sir.
I want to write my, and I understand that, of course, we all have commitments, but the conference process inevitably, it does seem to me, frankly, I think we on the House side feel much more strongly about 31 than some of us feel about page 18, line 25. In the interest of moving this forward, I would propose to, if this was acceptable, to recede to you on the page 18, line 25, and ask you to recede to us on the House 31.
Let me just take a look and.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Senator Crapo.
while you're taking a look, I also want to agree with Colin, Representative Peterson, and with Blanche and with Saxby. I really, this is, when it comes down to it, a turf battle, but it's an area where, frankly, the CFTC should have the jurisdiction.
Well, I think I just did the math, and even though it's almost after 4 o'clock in the morning, I can count. And
Then, Senator, I would propose that we recede to you on page 18, line 25, and you accept us on
I
House
accept
31.
that offer, and I'll talk to Senator Bingaman about this, but the votes are here clearly
Yeah.
for the Colin Peterson, Blanche Lincoln approach, and without having to get a roll call vote, that's to me where the votes are. So
All right, and I assume no objection on this side?
we're leaving. We still have we rejected the Reed number 2, the
But
amendment.
we would acquiesce to you on Reed, on the second Reed amendment, and on the main Senate offer, page 18, line 25.
Okay.
So I move that. That's our offer to you. So that title is now finished.
All right. That title's finished.
So we ready to, I guess we just have
Almost
the,
ready to rock and roll here. Let's see what else we got here. We got the miscellaneous.
that's next, funding.
You have the miscellaneous?
Chairman?
You have the miscellaneous, Barney?
Is the miscellaneous ready? It's being prepared, and we think we're in agreement.
We got to wait a few minutes for the pay for it.
More paper? Why don't you people write smaller? Then we wouldn't use so much paper.
Senators are older than House members.
No, he's talking about the pay for, the
Oh,
tax,
pay for. I thought you said paper.
the new tax.
We didn't run out of pay for. We ran out of paper. And apparently we're within a few minutes on both the pay for language change and the miscellaneous.
I think we've agreed to all of that, haven't we?
We've done 716.
Yeah,
We've now done the whole Title VII
right.
that we just finished on Title VII.
We just did. These were the areas of disagreement.
Okay. got this young hotshot opponent from Markup. Don't give it to me. Yeah, not one in my hometown.
When's your primary?
Late, which is good. The two of us play together September 14th or something. Well, you know, we're always the last week of primaries. So I don't have to debate until they. Well, this kid's going to challenge me to debate. You know where you are. I debated in the timeout. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody shows up. Except for us, and if they're not in office, you know, they're going to spend all the time studying up. I am told it's literally the report, which will be a joint report, and I think it will be easily disposed of, on the miscellaneous title. The last I was told it was being scanned into the machine and then copied. I did tell them that we did not need a whole lot of copies, that 30 copies would do, we could share. It's a slow copier, so I expect literally any minute we will do that. So then, Senator, I guess then we'll be ready to do the pay for, which I don't think will be a lengthy debate, and we'll be ready to go.
Just by the way, and again, because I think there was some confusion about Representative Garrett's covered bonds issues. And I thought I'd made it clear, Bob Corcoran made some suggestions. We had a little confusion. I think what I thought the suggestion was, still prepared to do a hearing, if that is any consolation. That probably isn't anything you'd offer in a conference report, committee. But we rejected the proposal, and but I appreciate it. We'll look at it and see what we can do. But I thought it might be clear about that. I think there was some question as to whether or not that was still out in the dangling back and forth. That was a rejection.
Back over here. I would then move, because we do have to get this conference concluded, that the House concur in the Senate rejection. Is there discussion?
Yes,
Gentleman,
Mr.
New Jersey.
Chairman. There was some, or actually quite a bit, of discussion over the last 6 hours with regard to this. And what we had liked to do, and I will do now, is propose an amendment which attempted to address some of the concerns that were raised on the other
Gentleman
side.
is recognized to offer the amendment.
Right. So the amendment is at the desk, has been circulated.
The clerk will designate the amendment. It's an amendment to Mr. Garrett, by Mr. Garrett to Mr. Garrett's original proposal.
I don't believe we have it.
I thought it was at the desk.
Amendment to the Senate proposed amendment to Title IX.
I ask unanimous consent that the amendment be considered as read, and the gentleman is recognized.
And basically, the amendment is the exact same bill that we had before. It addressed just some of the technical issues that we were dealing with over there, some tax issues that some of the members had raised. So that was addressed. Also, as far as regulator, that issue was raised to move it from Treasury over to OCC, so you have a prudential-type regulator to involve with the process. And I'll just keep it
Can you go
at
down
that.
so to distribute?
Well, I will respond and say I obviously initiated putting it through. We have a conference process. The Senate does not seem inclined to move. We've had to give up on several things on both sides. The gentleman, the Senator from Connecticut, has promised hearing.
I apologize. I was sorry. I didn't hear the two. I apologize.
Sure. Yeah, real quick. We put in language that some members in the Senate had concerns with, that we had hoped to be able to address some concerns. One was on a tax aspect, and the other one was with the regulator, put in a prudential regulator, so moved over from Treasury, get out of Treasury, but over to the OCC. So just that's there.
And again, I'm sure I'm telling you something you know already, and the FDIC has very strong objections to covered bonds because they work on the assumption that if these are left in the bank, the taxpayer's on the hook through the deposit insurance, as opposed to the investor assuming the risk. The bank assumes the risk and adds their financial burdens and taxpayer costs. So they're vehemently opposed to it. And on the basis of that, I'd have to...
Here, I understand what the gentleman said. I will join the Senator from Connecticut in promising, well, in our case, we've had a hearing. We're ready to proceed to a markup, and in July, we will have a markup on this bill.
Well, if I'm understanding the Senator, although on the one hand, I appreciate very much for the fact for the hearing, but if on the other hand, the fact that the FDIC is opposed to it, they ain't going to change their opposition. So
let's get back to the regular order. The gentleman is allowed to continue on his amendment.
Yeah. You plan to?
I would offer, since we're sort of in that informal state, I would say that I sympathize with the congressman, but I can count. And even at 4:35, I think what we ought to do is take the goodwill gestures. This isn't going to happen tonight. I already know that from this side of the aisle. I'm not trying to be a defeatist, but it's not going to happen. And take up the markup suggestion from your chairman, and we'll take the hearing suggestions from ours and try to move this ahead, because otherwise nothing good's going to come of this evening. Only because I can do math.
It's the gentleman from New Jersey's time.
I appreciate that, Senator, and I conclude my remarks. I appreciate the...
All right, the question then is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from New Jersey. Gentleman from Alabama.
I'll be very brief. The covered bonds, I'm not sure what the FDIC's objection would be, because the investors retain 100% of the risk. So, in fact, that's one of the attractive features of a covered bond. It's 100% risk retention.
If I could, I think that's the problem. The bank, not the investor, retains 100%. It's just the opposite of that. And so when they come in to seize a bank, they have concerns about the effect on their ability to make the depositors whole. So I think, again, I disagree with that, but I think we're in a better position with the goodwill we have here to move something ahead. Otherwise, I mean, this is going to be...
The senator has talked about goodwill. Goodwill has been known to be a deteriorating asset and has to be written off. And I would say that goodwill is not inexhaustible, and we might start depreciating that asset in a little bit.
The motion is withdrawn as far as the...
The gentleman has withdrawn the amendment. I will now, again, put to a vote by motion that the House recede to the Senate on the covered bonds. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, I believe we now have a joint product of a miscellaneous technical amendment. They made only 7 copies. It's got a lot of pages to it. That's why, because we want to give the text. I asked them to give the 2 chairs and the ranking members copies, and there will be other copies around as they are available. But I believe they're not terribly controversial, and the chairs and the ranking members have copies. Would anyone have objection to proceeding on that basis? Hearing none, we will proceed. So, just to start it off, Senator, I'll move this on the part of the House to you as an offer.
Well, correct. And let me just say to my colleagues, there are 21 miscellaneous amendments. Some I'm very familiar with it and could explain. Others, they're a little somewhat vague, so you probably want to hear. We're getting copies for everybody here. We just started the printing machines because it requires the list is only a page.
Let me suggest to the staff, get everybody at least the first copy. The actual text is probably not necessary, but if everybody got the cover sheet and knew what was there, that would be helpful.
And then we can try. I can have staff explain if I can't. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Who was the staff that did all the work on this? Well, is someone going to be prepared here to do a quick description of this? Did Charles do it?
Are we ready to proceed?
Well, then why don't you come on up here, somebody, and we can run through these.
What?
I don't know, where's that?
It's a big old section of it.
Read the list.
It's all that man safety stuff. I just wondered if it was relevant.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is. They did Congo. Yeah, we did the Congo.
Okay. I thought is that what it's all is?
Yeah.
It's not about coal mining.
No.
Okay. About the, like, diamonds and stuff.
Oil and gas.
Okay.
What they transfer. Senate conferees, how would you like to proceed on going over these? I'm. No. No?
This is not miscellaneous.
Well, no, it's not. So what?
Title's closed.
title is that? Well, they're all within titles of the bill.
Getting back all the jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, it's over here. Yeah, I'd just like a clarification on number 17, an amendment regarding mine safety, please. I guess it's attached in here?
Yeah, was that the Senator Byrd's amendment that I thought we, is that right? Someone tell me. That came from Senator Byrd. What does it do? Can someone explain from the staff what it does?
What it has to do with financial services or Wall Street?
This is Senator Rockefeller.
Senator Rockefeller.
Rockefeller Byrd.
I guess, yeah, Rockefeller, that's a Wall Street name, I guess.
Where is 17?
Must be a Wall Street connection.
Yeah.
The last one? No.
No, we'll get it up there.
Was this in the Senate bill?
Do you want an explanation of this one?
I mean, apparently the connection to Wall Street is, it's an amendment that I think was offered in the Senate that relates to information that has to be reported to the SEC on the
correct.
10K.
That's
There
correct.
have been various people who've complained
It
about
requires publicly
investment
traded mining companies to include mine safety information in its annual, quarterly filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. No one has to tell our colleague and friend from West Virginia what the people of that state went through in the last year or so. And this was in response, I think, to that, given some of the conditions. And so there was...
And Senator, the argument is that this is relevant to an investor, that liability from a poor safety record is a relevant factor for investors to know. So that was the rationale,
Right.
I believe, for putting it in here.
I'm going to suggest over on our side here, Senate Conference, we're going to strike the first one. This was a mistake to be included. We voted on all of this. It got added here. So without objection, miscellaneous amendment number 1 is now stricken from the list.
Right. Let me ask, on either side, are there any
Mr.
other
Chairman.
motions?
Mr. Chairman, before we agree to do that, Pat, doesn't this provide some continuity with SEC jurisdiction and CFTC that needs to be clarified?
Yes, it does, Senator Chambliss. The definition of primary financial regulatory agency that's in the precedes the Title I has listed for most of the regulatory agencies, the SEC and the banking agencies, the entities whom they are the primary regulator for. Somehow we had actually not had all of the CFTC registrants listed in the same way that they had been listed for the SEC and the banking regulators. And we worked with the banking committee staff to have that cured, and I think that it reflects the agreement that we have with the banking committee staff, which was agreed to by the House committees as well.
So I don't think we need to strike that. That's my point, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Jack, what do you want to do?
I agree with my colleague from Georgia.
While they're looking at that, are there any other amendments on this list that members need an explanation of, or? Very last offer, clarification of family office exemption.
Yes. Mr. Chairman?
Senator from Arkansas.
Yes, that was just a clarification of the underlying, there's an underlying home office exemption, and it was just a clarification of that, the underlying home office exemption.
Did it narrow it in any way, or?
Yes.
No. It just clarified it.
Are there additional questions about any of the other amendments? I'm happy to entertain them. With appropriate staff who can comment on what they mean. And I need to hear something more. I heard Saxby talk about number one and Senator Lincoln, but and Jack, you have, but it sounds, I'm not clear what the.
I think.
Are we consulting about it? All right.
We have the financial thing on there. Self-funding, funding. Don't care if I go, do you?
No, I don't. Hey, John, thank you.
Wrap it up, man, you got momentum.
I know, I'm just trying to get together, thinking around.
Try to go push it.
I couldn't if I knew that. I don't mean to say it. Because the Senate asked us not to do it. Okay. But there's no vehicle for it. We'll have to fix it some other way later. It's a fairly small job. It's a very, very big operation. We don't want to. approach them on that. Approach them on that. While the Senate is doing this, let me ask if there are any members of the House who have an objection to any of the provisions that are in the sheet that everyone now has.
Mr. Chairman, I just, again, on the mine safety issue, I don't,
Gentlemen, it's been explained. Does the gentleman wish to object to it?
I'm not going to object. I just have a question that's just been thrown at us in the middle of the night. It's the first time I've seen it, but I'm not going to object to it.
What was in the Senate bill? I will say. It wasn't in the Senate bill? When was it added? This was not in the base bill?
Let me add for our Senate conferees, by the way, Senator Crapo has raised an issue that we didn't pick up on before. I'll add it as number 22 on our list. This says that shareholders have the right every 6 years to say how frequently they would like the votes to occur on say on pay, 1, 2, or 3 years.
Should I explain that?
Correct? You want to explain that?
Yeah, you'll recall at the outset, I brought an amendment to have the say on pay be have the shareholders be able to decide whether it was every 1, 2, or 3 years.
Correct.
Some have come to us and have asked if that decision must be revisited. And I said, fine. So this now says that decision that they can make about it being either 1, 2, or 3 years must be revisited at least every 6 years.
We would have no objection to.
Thank you. And that's number 22, and we'll accept that as part of our list here.
Let me ask, are there any House members who want to strike any of these provisions?
I didn't get the answer to my question when it was put into the bill.
I can't, when it was put in, I don't exactly know. We've read it. I can't answer questions to which I don't know the answer. If the gentlewoman wants to strike it, she can move to strike it. I have no other way to deal with this. It was put in at the Senate side. Can anyone answer the gentlewoman's question? On the Rockefeller?
On the mine safety, when it was added in. I mean, certainly, being from Western, absolutely what you said. Mine safety is huge, and these accidents have been devastating to us. But I'm just curious to know, I haven't seen this. I didn't know when it was put into the bill.
Well, I think it goes back, as I recall now, some weeks ago, I think it was probably done on the floor of the Senate, I think. Senator Rockefeller, and it was one of those that we agreed to that amendment to be included in the bill.
So it was in the Senate bill?
I believe so. No, it was not.
It would have been in the manager's amendment.
It was going to be in a manager's amendment, which we never got to. It was one that we had agreed was no problem, so we put it in the bill under the SEC sections. That's how it came about. I'm sorry. We did not actually vote on it.
Does anyone wish to move to strike any of these provisions? Does any House member wish to move to strike any of the provisions? If not, then I move that we accept the offer. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we have accepted the offer, Senator.
We got to wait. Jack wants to wait. He wants to get an answer. But I ask you to kind of hurry up if you can. We're getting late here. On number one. Who wants to check? What about this other thing on say and pay? Do we have that done yet? Not the say and pay, the pay for? Huh?
There's still a question about it, so we should strike it.
Hey, if it's already been dealt with, it'd be superfluous. And when you do conform, wouldn't that take care of?
I don't know, but I'm stealing the tablet if anybody turns me in.
Now, is the only thing remaining to pay for, and then we're through.
got to vote on. All right, there's been in the Senate conferees, a colleague from Rhode Island, Senator Reed, wishes to strike number 1 from the joint miscellaneous technical amendments. I'm assuming that, are there any other efforts to strike any other part of this? If not, I'm going to propose that the entire list except number 1, and we'll ask for a vote. Want to vote? We have a vote? Is there a vote? Vote on 1? Jack wants to strike 1. Well, I know, but I can't. If members want to strike, I can't.
So this will be a vote on the motion.
Whether or not to strike number 1.
Roll call vote.
Anybody need an explanation of it?
Well, let's go ahead. Yeah, that might be if someone can give a.
Well, Pat knows the technical nature of it. Let him explain it one more time.
Okay.
There's a definition in before Title I. It's the primary financial regulatory agency, and it lists the Securities and Exchange Commission and the banking agencies as well as the CFTC. It also sets forth all of the entities which are registered with those regulators. For instance, at the SEC, you would have investment advisors, broker-dealers, credit rating agencies, and other entities. What we had done in this act is actually added in swap dealers, major swap participants, and other things. The SEC had those definitions added to their definition. The CFTC had not had them added in, so I requested that the Banking Committee staff add in the additional swap dealer, major swap participant, swap data repository, SEF, and all these other definitions which were being added by the Act, which were being put into the SEC at the same time. Banking Committee staff agreed. House Ag staff agreed. House Financial Services staff agreed. So it was put in as a technical change to marry it up with what the SEC had. That is the only thing that happened, and I'm not quite sure why there's an objection to it, because all of these entities are defined in the Commodity Exchange Act as passed in the bill. And they're very similar, and actually a direct readout almost of what happens for the Securities and Exchange Commission in the same definition. So it's not clear to me why this is an objectionable technical change.
Senator Reid, we're waiting for the opposite side. Want staff want to explain why you think this ought to be struck?
We accept our staff? Yeah, okay.
Anybody can give a, like, so members can have some idea what the debate is about. Why don't you identify yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Hester Purse, and I work for Senator Shelby.
Identify your assistant, please.
My name is Bob Corker, and I'm the assistant at the Hester.
That's Lazarus' friend. You remember Lazarus, don't you?
My concern is that Title VII, the derivatives title, included a number of very broad new definitions in the CEA, and those definitions gave the CFTC incredible authority to pull in numerous people to be registered with them. And so now this other language refers to all of those entities and gives the CFTC authority over those entities. And so I think we need to be concerned that we're moving folks from one regulator to another without really knowing what we're doing.
Okay, so there'll be, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll on.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question
Certainly,
of the young lady?
certainly.
So these are derivatives?
Are you asking staff the question?
Yeah. You said those are derivatives.
It's the entities that we're pulling in that I'm concerned.
Well, use the microphone, please, so we can all hear you.
This is actually the only thing I've been successful at so far.
I'm concerned that we're pulling in entities that do more than just swaps activities, and so we're going to end up giving the CFTC broader jurisdiction than we intended to. That's the concern.
Which is, heaven forbid, all of the jurisdiction that's been taken away tonight, but so that's what your concern is. Okay, thank you.
All right, this clerk will call the roll on the Reid amendment to strike number 1 from the joint miscellaneous and technical amendment list.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye. Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, aye. Mr. Schumer.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Schumer, aye by proxy. Ms. Lincoln. No. Ms. Lincoln, no. Mr. Leahy.
No.
Mr. Leahy, no by proxy. Mr. Harkin.
No by proxy.
Mr. Harkin, no by proxy. Mr. Shelby.
Aye.
Mr. Shelby, aye. Mr. Crapo.
No.
Did you hear the call?
No, I'm sorry. Mr.
You said
Crapo?
no.
Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Corker.
Yes.
Mr. Corker, aye. Mr. Gregg. Mr. Gregg, aye. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, no.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, the vote are 7 ayes, 5 nays.
The
The
amendment.
measures to strike is agreed.
Well, I'll ask people to vote on the entirety of our proposal, unless anyone wants to strike. All those in favor of the miscellaneous list as amended, will say aye. Those opposed, was the vote wrong on that count? What was the vote count again? I'd ask the clerk.
The vote was 7 aye, 5 nay.
Is there some disagreement about that count? No? All right. Now the motion, the issue is whether or not to adopt the miscellaneous list as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the miscellaneous list is agreed to on this side, and
we've already agreed, and obviously we can't agree to what you've deleted, so we agreed to everything that remained. We already agreed to it. We already agreed to the list.
So now I'm sending you back the list as
I move that we now concur in the Senate list minus number 1. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We concur.
See, he's supposed to get seven. Barney's getting sleepy.
Yeah. All right, do we have the other issue now?
Wade and what?
What? Oh, come on.
Look, I mean, this was an easy fix.
It would have been better if we could have had more bipartisan help.
We need a few more minutes. We're waiting for the pay for, and we may have something else we're working on over here. We'll be with you in a few minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to inquire
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
if anybody recalls what happened with the Grayson amendment.
that we offered to the Senate?
It was dropped in the miscellaneous proposals.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the outcome of that was.
It was offered, the Senate rejected it on the miscellaneous list, and we concurred in the rejection. Gentleman from Pennsylvania has asked to be recognized to make a motion.
All right. This is an extraordinary historic event, in my opinion. There are two people that headed up this. It's an extraordinary historic event. There are two people at this table that contributed something I didn't think we could do this year, and that is bring a financial regulation bill being prepared to send to the sent to the House and Senate and eventually the President next week. So I would like to make a motion that the bill henceforth be known in honor of the two chairmen, our chairman and the Senate chairman, so that historically it will be the Frank Dodd bill or the Dodd-Frank bill. Dodd-Frank bill.
Why don't you take the gavel?
Okay. Are there any questions on the motion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So ordered.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
That was a nice gesture.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Job, I got to tell you.
Thank you. Thanks for voting on it, Spencer. Thank you.
They're probably trying to find Michael. Or, Jesus, they found Michael, boy.
Do we know what's going on? Well, go send you and Michael some answer where we have to be pieces that you can't.
Yeah, this bill results in a lot of good consumer protection. That'll be quite a legacy. I don't know how I found it. Found it. I couldn't do a worse job on consumer protection. I mean,
I don't know, Maxine, what the hell are you holding up the damn train for? I think we're being abandoned. Where are they all going?
If they gotta get sense, they go home.
Just now?
No, no, about an hour ago.
Just an hour ago?
So there was language that got into the package of technicals, which helped to define what the CFTC had jurisdiction over. It was meant to narrow what was in the underlying bill, and there was a misunderstanding and a blow-up, and so there was alternative language that had been worked out by the multiple agencies, but that never got in. It was late. We got it like an hour and a half ago. So Blanche threatened to take her signature back and walk away from the conference. So they are close to finishing up. They're on the last page. I think the last change that was made was one was
Where are we
deleted.
on the pay for?
Where are we on the pay for? Yeah, I'm sorry.
But when you're doing that, well,
I know, I'm just.
oh, it's just a simple switch.
Okay, we're making copies to do a final reading, then down the paperwork.
If it was just a simple switch, why did it take so long? Did they make other changes in the paperwork besides
What
putting
they
the
did
funds
was
up
they
front?
left your risk matrix the way.
What
that
other
you
changes did they make?
The other changes were that they had the council do it through the FDIC as the agent, and then it would go into the Treasury, I think, in a fund that was under the Exchange Stabilization Act. Oh my gosh, there were it was Treasury up there and FDIC, and your staff and our staff. So they're done. They're just copying it.
Told me that couldn't, people, that couldn't take it. I would have gone up there. How can I take it out? Just to put it in, what took so long?
Because it was by committee.
Well, next time.
I know. Michael Moresik's up there.
No, but Chris and I can look at it. copies of the technical changes to the pay-for is being passed out? I don't see any movement that suggests they are. Would someone tell me who has copies, and we'll begin? Copies are being made. Do not wait until there are 150 copies. As you begin to get copies, give them to the members so we can start. The Senate goes first. Give them to the senators first. Get 12 copies made right away of stuff for the senators.
I'll make the case for it, and while the copies are being either made or whatever, and that is that we've, and whoever was involved, I know there was quite of a scrum there between the various agencies or whatever, coming up with language that I understand has been found acceptable to all the interested parties, and that the language has been agreed to and will be, we're going to reconsider. This is which one?
Amy says you want to this. This is the one about recess.
Well, getting
Do you want to do this?
well, we're adding, I don't know, we're adding elements. It's a little late. Yeah.
Is this in
Well, I would, but it just took 2 hours. So I'm just saying to our House counterparts, as soon as that comes in, what we'll do is reconsider the joint miscellaneous technical amendments, and we'll restore a language to be the number 1 in that category with the new language. And is that available?
Which one?
There's one copy of it.
There's one copy of this?
This is the CFTC?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would, well, it's your thing. We just would read it.
Just read it to us.
Where is it? Who has a copy of it?
We're looking at the ag.
Senator, on our side, there would be no objection to listening you read it aloud and then vote on that basis when it came to us.
You don't want to, it takes too long to read the whole thing.
Not if I read it.
I just read it too, so I can. But unless someone else objects to this, you've looked at it, everyone has agreed to it. Let me ask my colleagues now. I'll move that the Dodd amendment to the miscellaneous and technical amendments be added to the longer list of 21 other items. Is there any objection to that? Without objection, it's so amended. I'll now ask my colleagues to vote on the miscellaneous and technical amendments as amended. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. And the amended version of the miscellaneous and technical amendments is agreed to. We now send that to the House.
The question now is on concurring with the Senate action on the miscellaneous technical amendments as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is concurred with.
Okay, and the only other item we're waiting for now is, of course,
It's just being copied.
just being copied. Since we have the copy, then we can briefly explain that, and then we'll be prepared to come to the, make sure you get a copy for the, now where is the, this needs to be explained. Where's Charles? Who's doing this?
Yeah, Charles was doing it.
Where is he?
He's coming back. He did.
Jimmy.
Mr. Chairman, is this, is the pay for in a new title?
It's not a, I don't know, is this, how is, Chairman Frank, how is this a title to the bill?
Yes. The title.
Separate title. Where's Charles? Charles E., why don't you come over here and...
Outside the scope of the bill.
This is Charles E. of the Senate Banking Committee staff,
Point of order.
former tank commander in Bosnia, by the way.
She gonna explain it? She gonna?
He's going to explain it.
I'll hold it. I'm not Lazarus. So.
Let Senator Corker hold the mic for him.
What do you say?
He's doing very well.
Go ahead, Charles.
All right, sir. So the construct is that the Financial Stability Oversight Council will impose and the FDIC will collect special assessments from the largest financial companies to fully offset the net deficit effect of the bill. The assessments will be put into a separate fund inside the Treasury Department and cannot be used for any purpose for 25 years. And after 25 years, the fund will terminate, and the assessments will only be then used for the purpose of reducing the debt of the United States. And the assessments will be based on a risk matrix and vary according to the risk posed by the financial companies, so that the companies that pose less risk will pay less assessments.
And that's the proposal. As I say, this is maybe a historic first. We have a large bill, and we're contributing to reducing the national debt.
10 years.
All in the same piece of legislation. And so I'm going to move that that we accept this proposal.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Certainly, my colleague.
Wasn't the original proposal far less than 25 years?
Original proposal, I don't think it had any years.
If I could respond, yes, it's the amount of cost was over a 10-year period, but it's being held for 25 years to satisfy CBO's requirements that it won't be used for any other purpose, and it will be available to offset the debt at the appropriate time.
Mr. Chairman, this might be an appropriate time for you to reference your fairy tales reference, as you oftentimes do. I think that this is actually paying off the debt.
But the fees or taxes will not be collected for 25 years.
No, they will be collected for that. There's a limit. They go up to, I think, $19 billion, and we hope less, and that's then held for the 25 years to make sure it's not used for other purposes, Senator.
And for debt reduction at the expiration of that period of time. The clerk, I've been asked for a roll call vote on this. The clerk will call the roll on the pay-for proposals that have been submitted to us by the House conferees.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye. Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Reed, aye. Mr. Schumer.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Schumer, aye by proxy. Ms. Lincoln. Ms. Lincoln, aye. Mr. Leahy.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Leahy, aye by proxy. Mr. Harkin.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Harkin, aye by proxy. Mr. Shelby.
No.
Mr. Shelby, no. Mr. Crapo.
No.
Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Corker.
No.
Mr. Corker, no. Mr. Gregg.
No.
Mr. Gregg, no. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, no. Mr. Chairman, the votes are 7 aye, 5 nay.
Mr. Chairman?
The recorded vote is, I'm sorry, what did the clerk say? Seven ayes?
Ayes, 5 nays.
I thank the clerk, and it carries.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's only befitting that by unanimous consent, we call this title the Osterley Rule.
Ah, the Osterley rule.
No, I object.
Osterley Rule.
Senator Shelby's, it was Senator Shelby's staff person who suggested this construct to retire the debt, reduce the debt of the national
Mr.
government.
Chairman, if you've sent that offer to us, I would now move for a roll call vote. We debated earlier a little bit. Well, I would move in a roll call vote. We would have to concur. So I would ask the clerk to call the roll on concurring in what the senators just counter offered to us after our offer. The clerk will call the roll, and I will. Let me ask the parliamentarian, who votes on this? Just the Financial Services Committee. So the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. Mr. Kandrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kandrowski votes aye. Ms. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Maloney?
Aye.
Ms. Maloney votes aye. Mr. Gutierrez?
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Gutierrez votes aye by proxy. Mr. Watt? Mr. Watt votes aye. Mr. Meeks? Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore votes aye. Ms. Kilroy?
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Kilroy votes aye by proxy. Mr. Peters?
Aye.
Mr. Peters votes aye. Mr. Backus?
No.
Mr. Backus votes no. Mr. Royce?
No.
Mr. Royce votes no. Mrs. Biggert? Mrs. Biggert votes no. Mrs. Capito? Mrs. Capito votes no. Mr. Henserling? No. Mr. Henserling votes no. Mr. Garrett?
No.
Mr. Garrett votes no.
Will the clerk please report?
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there are 10 ayes and 6 nays.
And we concur. Mr. Chairman, I now intend to put to a roll call vote the completed package, which we now have before us. And I ask the clerk to call the roll of House members. We will then have the Senate members. I ask the clerk to call the roll of all House members who are all entitled to vote on this.
There'll be conforming and technical amendments. Our staff's will
Without-
work on
without a-
that.
yes.
I have to ask consent for that to occur.
We get unanimous consent for there to be conforming and technical amendments, and the effort will be to get this bill onto the internet as each title is produced by Ledge Counsel, and we expect to vote in the House on Tuesday. The clerk will now
Mr.
call the
Chairman,
roll.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
when would we anticipate seeing the conforming and technical amendments, since this whole bill is quite technical? And
Could I ask the staff as we produce them, some tomorrow, although I would certainly object to any staff member who came in here before noon tomorrow, I think. Yes, today.
Senate staff will be at their desks at 8:30 this morning.
Right, having slept there for the past couple of hours. But we will get them as soon as we can. The clerk will now, I ask that the clerk now call the roll on passage of the financial reform bill. All members of the House are entitled to vote on the final bill.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Mr. Kanjorski?
Aye.
Mr. Kanjorski votes aye. Ms. Waters? Aye. Ms. Waters votes aye. Mrs. Maloney? Aye. Mrs. Maloney votes aye. Mr. Gutierrez?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Gutierrez votes aye by proxy. Mr. Watt? Aye. Mr. Watt votes aye. Mr. Meeks? Aye. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Moore? Aye. Mr. Moore votes aye. Ms. Kilroy?
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Kilroy votes aye by proxy. Mr. Peters?
Aye.
Mr. Peters votes aye. Mr. Peterson?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Peterson votes aye by proxy. Mr. Boswell?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Boswell votes aye by proxy. Mr. Waxman?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Waxman votes aye by proxy. Mr. Rush?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Rush votes aye by proxy. Mr. Conyers?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Conyers votes aye by proxy. Mr. Berman?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Berman votes aye by proxy. Mr. Towns?
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Towns votes aye by proxy. Mr. Cummings? Mr. Cummings votes aye. Ms. Velasquez?
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Velasquez votes aye by proxy. Mr. Schuler?
No vote. The clerk will go to the Republicans.
Mr. Backus?
I don't have a problem.
No.
Mr. Backus votes no. Mr. Royce?
No.
Mr. Royce votes no. Mrs. Biggert? Mrs. Biggert votes no. Mrs. Capito? Mrs. Capito votes no. Mr. Henserling? Mr. Henserling votes no. Mr. Garrett?
no.
Mr. Garrett votes no. Mr. Lucas?
No by proxy.
Mr. Lucas votes no by proxy. Mr. Barton?
No by proxy.
Mr. Barton votes no by proxy. Mr. Smith?
No by proxy.
Mr. Smith votes no by proxy. Mr. Issa?
No by proxy.
Mr. Issa votes no by proxy. Mr. Graves?
No by proxy.
Mr. Graves votes no by proxy.
Madam Clerk, I do have a proxy for Mr. Schuler, and he votes aye by proxy.
Mr. Schuler votes aye by proxy.
The clerk will report on the tally among House members.
Mr. Chairman, on that vote, there are 20 ayes and 11 nays.
Mr. Chairman, I am pleased to be able to report to you that the House sends you its approval of the financial reform bill.
Well, I thank you very much, Chairman Frank. Let me congratulate you on a terrific job, with the House members. We'll now have a vote on the Senate side. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. Is that I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye. Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson, aye. Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Reed, aye. Mr. Schumer.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Schumer, aye by proxy. Ms. Lincoln. Ms. Lincoln, aye. Mr. Leahy.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Leahy, aye by proxy. Mr. Harkin.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Harkin, aye by proxy. Mr. Shelby.
No.
Mr. Shelby, no. Mr. Crapo.
No.
Mr. Crapo, no. Mr. Corker.
No.
Mr. Corker, no. Mr. Gregg.
No.
Mr. Gregg, no. And Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chambliss, no.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, the votes are 7 aye, 5 nay. The bill is passed.
I thank my colleagues immensely.
With the votes of the House and the Senate conferees in favor of passage of the bill, I declare the bill passed, and the conference committee is now adjourned.